Imagine standing before a firing squad, your eyes blindfolded and the hammers of the rifles clicking back, only to be saved by a literal last-second pardon. That is how December 22nd started for one of the world's greatest writers, but that is just the tip of the iceberg for this dramatic day in history.
Before we dive into the timeline, let's talk about the legends born on this day. We share this date with Giacomo Puccini, the Italian composer born in 1858, who gave us some of the most emotional operas ever written, like La Bohème and Tosca. We also celebrate the birth of Jean-Michel Basquiat in 1960, the revolutionary artist who took the 1980s New York art scene by storm with his raw, neo-expressionist style. And of course, there is the incredible Ralph Fiennes, born in 1962, an actor whose range spans from the terrifying Lord Voldemort to the sophisticated charm of the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Now, let's step back into the shadows of the 12th century for our first event. In the year 1135, Stephen of Blois was crowned King of England. Following the death of his uncle, King Henry I, Stephen rushed across the English Channel to seize the throne before his cousin, the Empress Matilda, could claim it.
This coronation triggered a 19-year period of chaos and civil war known as the Anarchy. It was a time of lawlessness where, as chroniclers put it, Christ and his saints slept. This struggle for the crown fundamentally changed the way the English monarchy and the legal system functioned for centuries to come. Moving forward to 1808, we find ourselves in Vienna for one of the most legendary and exhausting nights in musical history. Ludwig van Beethoven conducted a marathon 4-hour benefit concert at the Theater an der Wien. On this single night, he premiered his 5th and 6th symphonies, his 4th piano concerto, and the choral fantasy. To make things more intense, the theater was freezing cold, and the orchestra hadn't had enough rehearsal time. Despite the shivering audience and some shaky playing, the world was introduced to the iconic 4-note opening of the 5th Symphony, a melody that would become a universal symbol for fate knocking at the door. In 1849, we witness the terrifying moment I mentioned earlier. The Russian author Fyodor Dostoevsky, along with other members of a radical intellectual group called the Petrushevsky Circle, was led to a public square to be executed by firing squad. The prisoners were tied to stakes and the soldiers had their rifles aimed. At the very last possible moment, a carriage arrived with a message from the Tsar, commuting their sentences to hard labor in Siberia. This mock execution was a calculated psychological torture tactic by the state. The experience of staring death in the face profoundly changed Dostoevsky, leading him to write some of the deepest psychological novels in history, including Crime and Punishment and The Brothers Karamazov. By 1894, the political landscape of France was being torn apart by the Dreyfus Affair. On this day, Alfred Dreyfus, a Jewish captain in the French army, was wrongly convicted of treason based on forged documents. He was sentenced to life imprisonment on the desolate Devil's Island. The case became a massive scandal that exposed deep-seated anti-Semitism in the French military and government. It divided the country into two warring camps for over a decade. The eventual exoneration of Dreyfus became a landmark victory for justice and human rights, reminding the world of the dangers of state-sponsored prejudice. If you think your daily commute is bad, imagine what New Yorkers felt in 1937. On December 22nd, the first tube of the Lincoln Tunnel officially opened to traffic. Connecting Weehawken, New Jersey, to Midtown Manhattan, it was hailed as an engineering marvel of its time. On that first day, thousands of drivers paid a 50-cent toll to drive beneath the Hudson River. The tunnel became a vital artery for the city's economy, though I'm sure those first drivers didn't realize they were beginning a tradition of sitting in some of the most famous traffic jams in the world. In 1944, the world was in the grips of World War II, and the brutal Battle of the Bulge was raging through the snowy forests of Belgium. On this day, German forces surrounded the town of Bastogne and demanded the surrender of the American troops holding it. Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe sent back a one-word reply that has since become military legend: nuts. That defiant response boosted the morale of the Allied troops, and the Americans held their ground until reinforcements arrived, marking a turning point in the final major German offensive of the war. By 1971, the focus shifted to humanitarianism. The International Medical Organization Médecins Sans Frontières, better known as Doctors Without Borders, was officially founded in Paris. Created by a group of French doctors and journalists, the organization was built on the belief that all people have the right to medical care, regardless of their race, religion, or political affiliation. They committed themselves to speaking out against human rights abuses they witnessed in the field, a move that eventually earned them the Nobel Peace Prize in 1999. In 1989, we witnessed the dramatic end of an era in Romania. After a week of increasingly violent anti-government demonstrations, the communist dictator Nicolae Ceausescu and his wife Elena were forced to flee the capital, Bucharest, in a helicopter. The images of the couple fleeing from the roof of the Communist Party headquarters were broadcast around the world, signaling the collapse of one of the most repressive regimes in the Eastern Bloc. It was a pivotal moment in the 1989 revolutions that saw the fall of the Iron Curtain across Europe. Just 1 year later, in 1990, the transition to democracy in Poland reached its peak. Lech Walesa, a former shipyard electrician and the leader of the Solidarity labor movement, was inaugurated as the first freely elected president of Poland. His journey from a persecuted labor activist to the head of state symbolized the triumph of peaceful resistance over totalitarianism. Walensa's inauguration was a final symbolic victory for the movement that had started in the shipyards of Gdansk a decade earlier. Finally, in 2001, we come to a moment that changed air travel forever. Just months after the September 11th attacks, a man named Richard Reed attempted to detonate explosives hidden in his sneakers while on a flight from Paris to Miami. Passengers and crew members noticed him trying to light a fuse and wrestled him to the floor before he could cause an explosion. This failed shoe bomber plot is the reason why, to this day, millions of travelers around the world have to take their shoes off at airport security checkpoints every single time they fly. If you want to stay curious every single day, subscribe now.